Hello, everyone. This is Julia of Kingdom Leadership Essentials. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Did you know that you can become 10 times better through fasting? Let's answer that and talk much more as I share with you 10 principles for how you can dominate, how you can become 10 times better, not only in your home, but in your cities, but in your states, in your nations, in your world, your realm of influence through fasting. And we're going to start by going to the book of Daniel, the very first chapter. Daniel 1 is full of nuggets for what we will discuss on today. See, there was a king, King Nebuchadnezzar, that was an enemy to Israel, and he took Israel into captivity. And in doing that, he took into his home, he only wanted the best of the best. He wanted children that had no blemish, who were well favored, who were knowledgeable in science, who had great understanding, who had the ability to stand in the king's palace. He only wanted the best. So they brought in Daniel and the three Hebrew boys, his companions. And in doing that, they were supposed to eat at the king's table. But Daniel stood up and refused. He went to the eunuch who was placed in command, and he found favor with him. And let me tell you what happened. Let's talk about our very first principle, and that is that Daniel refused to compromise with the enemy. Although he was asked to sit at the king's table, to be trained and to eat at the king's table, Daniel stood firm to his heritage, to his background, to his relationship with God. And he refused to compromise with the enemy. That is principle number one. When you fast, do not compromise. Number two, Daniel honored his God. He honored his heritage. He honored his faith by standing firm on what he believed. This was bold. This was courageous. And he said to the eunuch, he used his relationship, the favor that God had given him, and he asked him a big, bold question. He said, allow us, me and the three Hebrew boys, to fast. Give me 10 days and let's see what happens. I'll only eat pulse legumes, which is vegetables and beans, bread and water for these 10 days and see what happens. This eunuch was very afraid because they were going against the king's commandment. This meant that he, as well as Daniel and the three Hebrew boys, could lose their lives if they began to show themselves weak and began to show themselves frail. But God had a plan and a purpose, and Daniel was committed to his God. And he said, give us a chance. And because of his favor, he was given an opportunity. So he asked. That's our third principle. He showed excellence by going to the person in charge and asking permission. He did it boldly. He asked a hard thing. And with what's going on in our land and in our nation in 2021, we are going to have to step up bold and ask for some hard things. We're going to ask for our changes in laws. We're going to ask for justice. We're going to ask for the supply and demand that is needed that we can overcome this global crisis. Number 4, Daniel fasted. He consecrated himself in enemy territory. He stayed firm to his background, to his heritage of holding a solemn ritual of fasting. Fasting works. He asked for 10 days. Let us consecrate. He knew that for him, that meant going before his God, with not just skipping a meal, not just eating a certain type of meal, but coupling that with prayer, coupling that with faith would bring about the results that Daniel needed. And it surely will bring about for us today the results that we need. Many in Christendom have gone through their 21-day fast. Today is the last day for many Christians in that area of fasting. But I want you to know we are not to fast for naught. We are not to just skip meals, but we need to fast with purpose, purpose to change us, purpose to change our homes, purpose to change our cities, our states, our nation, our country, our world. There is a purpose behind it, and you can use these principles to change, to take dominion in your area of influence. The fifth principle was that he was committed to not only his God, he was committed to the fast. He hung in there for the 10 days. He stood on his faith for the 10 days. He led by example with the Hebrew boys for these 10 days. It had to be difficult sitting there at the table, others eating desserts, others drinking wines, others having their delight, but they stood firm and they were committed. Number six, our sixth principle is that Daniel used his gift. All behind the scenes, the king had a dream and it troubled him, and he needed someone to interpret the dream. Well, Daniel, because of the fast, he was able to step up and step out and use his gift in the midst of the enemy territory. Did you hear what I said? Using his gift in the midst of enemy territory. He was the mouthpiece. He made his contribution in the midst of hard and troubled times. I reach out to you. I speak to you to say, use your gifts now. Come to the forefront. We need your gifts now. Your gift of knowledge, your gift of science, your gift of understanding, your gift of patterns, your gift in medicine, your gift in transportation, your gift in supplying goods. Step up. I encourage you. I empower you. Fasting will cause you to use your gifts and to make your contribution. The seventh principle was that he represented God. When he was called before the king, he was not representing just the gifted ones that the king brought into his home. He was representing God. He was standing up for kingdom leadership. Kingdom leadership has the answers. Kingdom leadership steps up boldly. Kingdom leadership steps up with courage. Kingdom leadership is not asking for anything in return, but kingdom leadership is there to make our contribution. We are there to provide the answer, and we do have the answer for this world today. I encourage you to refuse to compromise, to honor God, to fast, to ask boldly, to stay committed, to make your contribution of your gift, to represent God well. And that takes us to our ninth principle. He was the answer to leadership's problem, and he was God's answer to the nation. Number 10, and our 10th and final principle was that in doing all of this, he was able to change his world. He used his influence in the realm of the relationship with the eunuch. He found favor, and he used his influence to influence the Hebrew boys. He definitely influenced the eunuch, and he influenced the king, and a change occurred in this nation where Nebuchadnezzar changed the laws concerning the nation of Israel and their God. I want to tell you, I'm so excited. As I came to the end of my fast and consecration, I thought about how could I make my contribution, and I had to jump on here to let you know that what we do, what you're doing, is not in vain. You can and you will change your world and change the nation. In doing that, we must use our emotional intelligence. When we step up and we speak to power, we must be emotionally sound and stable. We do not go in shouting. Daniel didn't go in cursing. He was not an emotional mess. He wasn't full of anger, but he stood before the king boldly in full assurance of faith, trusting God for the outcome. We must use this type of emotional intelligence in 2021 as we speak to power. We must also use relational intelligence. Daniel and the three Hebrew boys found favor in the sight of the immediate leadership, which was the eunuch. We must find favor and use our relationships intellectually. Be strategic, bold, and courageous in the rooms that God has called us to walk into in 2021. And at the tables, sitting in the seats at the table where God has called us to in 2021 to make a significant difference, to use our gifts and make our contribution for 2021 for the kingdom of God. This has been Julia of Kingdom Leadership Essentials. Thank you.